It was a warm summer evening in the ancient city of Kyoto when the young monk Takeshi found himself once again plagued by unwanted thoughts. As he sat in meditation in the serene garden of the Kenninji temple, his mind kept drifting to images and fantasies he knew he should not be entertaining. Try as he might to focus on his breath and the present moment, the persistent mental chatter would not subside. Takeshi had been studying Zen Buddhism under the tutelage of the revered Zen master Ryokan for several years now. He had made great strides in his practice, learning to quiet his mind and cultivate a deep sense of inner peace. But this particular challenge, of dealing with intrusive thoughts of a sexual nature, continued to vex him. He felt ashamed that even after all his efforts, he still struggled with these unwanted mental distractions. One evening after the evening meditation session, Takeshi mustered the courage to approach his teacher. He bowed deeply before the wise old monk and said, "Roshi, I come to you with a problem that has been troubling me greatly. Despite my best efforts, I find myself plagued by impure thoughts that arise unbidden in my mind. I have tried to ignore them, to push them away, but they keep returning. I feel like I am failing in my practice. Please, I humbly ask for your guidance." Master Ryokan looked at his young student with compassion. "Ah yes, the scourge of the wandering mind. It is a challenge that all practitioners must face at some point in their journey. But do not be too hard on yourself, Takeshi. The fact that you are even aware of these thoughts, and that they trouble you, shows the depth of your sincerity and commitment to the way." He gestured for Takeshi to sit beside him on the engawa, the wooden veranda that overlooked the tranquil garden. "Tell me, my student, what exactly happens when these thoughts arise? What do you do in response?" Takeshi thought for a moment before answering. "Well, Roshi, when the thoughts come, I try to push them away, to ignore them and focus on my breath. But they keep coming back, like a persistent fly that won't leave me alone. And then I start to feel guilty and ashamed for even having these thoughts in the first place. I feel like I am failing in my practice, that I am not worthy to be a monk." Master Ryokan nodded thoughtfully. "I see. And therein lies the problem, Takeshi. By resisting the thoughts, by judging them as bad or wrong, you actually give them more power over you. The more you try to push them away, the more they persist. And the guilt and shame you feel only compounds the issue." He paused, looking out over the garden, where a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the maple trees. "You know, Takeshi, the mind is like a wild horse. If you try to force it to be still, it will only resist and buck. But if you approach it with patience and understanding, if you learn to ride it gently, it will eventually calm and submit to your guidance." Takeshi listened intently, his eyes fixed on his teacher's weathered face. "But how do I do that, Roshi? How do I tame this wild horse of a mind?" Master Ryokan smiled. "Ah, that is the key question, is it not? The answer lies in the practice of mindfulness, of being fully present and aware in each moment. When the thoughts arise, do not judge them or try to push them away. Simply observe them, like a scientist observing a specimen under a microscope. Notice their texture, their color, their movement, and then let them go, like clouds passing through the sky." He placed a gnarled hand on Takeshi's shoulder. "And most importantly, Takeshi, do not be afraid of the thoughts. They are just thoughts, after all, nothing more. They cannot harm you unless you give them power over you. Treat them with compassion, as you would a child who is lost and afraid. Soothe them with your understanding and then gently guide them back to the present moment." Takeshi nodded slowly, his mind already processing the wisdom of his teacher's words. I understand, Roshi. But what if the thoughts keep coming back, even after I've observed them and let them go? Master Ryokan chuckled. Then observe them again and again and again. It is like training a dog to sit. You must repeat the command many times before it sticks. The same is true for the mind. With consistent practice, the thoughts will gradually lose their power, and you will find yourself more and more anchored in the present moment. He paused, his eyes twinkling with mischief. And if all else fails, Takeshi, remember the wise words of our ancestor Ikkyu. When the mind is filled with dirty thoughts, just poop them out. Takeshi couldn't help but laugh at the unexpected advice. Poop them out, Roshi. Master Ryokan nodded sagely. Yes, my student. Imagine the thoughts as little turds, and simply let them drop out of your mind, like a dog relieving itself. It may sound crude, but sometimes the most profound wisdom comes wrapped in the most ordinary of packages. Takeshi bowed deeply, his heart filled with gratitude and a renewed sense of purpose. Thank you, Roshi. Your words have given me much to reflect upon. I will put your teachings into practice and trust that in time I will find the peace and clarity I seek. As he walked back to his quarters, Takeshi felt a lightness in his step that he hadn't experienced in a long time. The burden of his unwanted thoughts seemed to have lifted, replaced by a sense of possibility and hope. In the days and weeks that followed, Takeshi diligently applied the lessons he had learned from his teacher. Whenever the intrusive thoughts arose, he would observe them with a calm and steady gaze, noticing their qualities without judgment. And when they persisted, he would imagine them as little turds and let them drop out of his mind with a mental plop. At first it was a struggle, and the thoughts would often return with a vengeance, but Takeshi persisted, trusting in the wisdom of his teacher's words, and gradually he began to notice a shift in his experience. The thoughts became less frequent and less intense, and he found himself more and more anchored in the present moment. One day, while sitting in meditation, Takeshi had a profound realization. The thoughts that had once plagued him were no longer a source of suffering, but rather a reminder of the impermanence of all things. They arose and passed away, like waves on the ocean, and he was no longer attached to them. With this understanding came a deep sense of peace and acceptance. Takeshi realized that he was not his thoughts, nor was he defined by them. He was simply a witness to the ever-changing flow of mental phenomena, and he had the power to choose how he responded to them. From that day forward, Takeshi's practice deepened, and his understanding of the Dharma grew. He became a beacon of wisdom and compassion for his fellow monks, and his teachings touched the hearts of all who encountered him. And whenever he found himself tempted by the siren song of the wandering mind, he would remember the words of his teacher: when the mind is filled with dirty thoughts, just poop them out with a smile and a mental plop. He would let the thoughts go and return his attention to the present moment, where true freedom and happiness could be found. The story of Takeshi and his journey to tame the wild horse of his mind serves as a powerful reminder that even the most persistent challenges can be overcome through patience, practice, and the guidance of a wise teacher. By approaching our thoughts with compassion and equanimity, we can learn to ride them gently and find the peace and clarity that we seek. So the next time you find yourself plagued by unwanted thoughts, remember the lessons of Takeshi and Master Ryokan. Observe the thoughts with a calm and steady gaze. Let them go with a mental plop and return your attention to the present moment. With consistent practice, you too can tame the wild horse of your mind and find the freedom and happiness that lies at the heart of the Dharma.